much better than rain. I'd rather have it hot than rainy. And after the winter that we've had so far, I cannot complain. I'm from Jamaica, so this is nothing. You know, just be safe and drink a lot of water, you know. They have plenty of water here for you. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here with all of you this afternoon. And I just happened to arrive, and the first thing that I noticed, there was no podium. Well, I'm deaf. Part of my accommodations is a podium because I need my hands to communicate with you all. So this wonderful gentleman here has volunteered to be my podium. He will be helping me today, so thank you. You know, we make a good team, accommodations. And my interpreter will be in front here voicing. Thank you. And the son's on the interpreter. I want to thank all of the organizers and the sponsors for making this remarkable celebration possible. I want to thank each and every one of you all for taking time to show up here today. Thank you for coming for this celebration of this most tremendous occasion. It wouldn't be anything without you. And I must say thank you to Miss Ruby Moore. Where's Ruby? Ruby? Where's Ruby? She's not here. Oh, okay. Ruby Moore and Miss Jillian Grable. Woo. Both of them reached out to me for an invitation, and after many, many emails back and forth, here we are. Mark Johnson, where are you, Mark? Mark's way over there. Hey, Mark! And Tom Olin. Yeah. What can I say? These two, it's real simple. I just love these guys. Without their tireless and selfless sacrifices, there would be no ADA Legacy Tour. I want to thank them both, and I want to thank their team for all their efforts to honor the work occurring in the regional and national organizations, for your work to preserve the history of the disability rights movement, and to educate the future generations of advocates and leaders. Thank you for preserving the rich history of this movement. Thank you for educating people on the history of the disability rights movement. They must know the history behind this wonderful law, correct? Now, friends, we all are gathered here together to celebrate a law that has truly transformed how our society views, treats, and accommodates citizens with disabilities. That particular law is a landmark disability civil rights law that is known to us worldwide as the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it has positively impacted the lives of thousands of Americans, including myself, who are living with disabilities for the past 25 years. Now, let me echo something that my friend and fellow disability rights advocate Mark Johnson said. The Americans with Disabilities Act is an integral part of our nation's civil rights journey. Is that not true? Yes, it is. Disability rights are civil rights. Disability rights are equal rights. It is a part of the journey. It's a part of our rich history here in this nation. For too long, our needs, our issues, and our concerns, they've been viewed more as a matter of charity. And for too long, society's primary preoccupation has been on fixing us through medical interventions, through therapy, and so forth. That is versus accommodating us. They've been focused on teaching us dependency. Instead of providing us with the tools which we need to become independent and self-sufficient individuals. For too long, society has forced us into isolation versus integration and inclusion. The ADA symbolized the hope for a more inclusive society where all individuals could have a chance to live up to their full potential. When the ADA law was signed into place, it placed our country and our economy on a path that we would benefit from the talents and the contributions of all Americans. Helen Keller. She was both deaf and blind. She is one of the most beloved historic figures of all time. This woman embodied the spirit of America and all of the limitless possibilities. From that moment back in April of 1887, she was just 7 years old when she discovered the art of language. The word was water at the water pump outside her home in Tuscumbia, Alabama. She never stopped breaking down barriers. Miss Keller, she went on to teach the entire world that everyone has something. Each and every one of you have something positive to contribute when we are given the opportunity. Because we define ourselves. We are not defined by others. We should be defined by our potential, not our limits. There was an advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King. He said that people think that a revolution begins with injustice. It does not. A revolution, it begins with hope, a vision. I stand, when I think about it, I stand on the countless shoulders of the disability rights advocates and activists and the allies. These included the parents of children with disabilities, who, like Helen Keller, also taught us to believe that everyone has something. And we hope that we all have people who believe in the possibility of something positive that we all can contribute when we're given the opportunity. Now they hope that for the future, wherein people with disabilities would enjoy equal access and full participation in all aspects of mainstream society. In this society, we would lead our own independent lives. We would make our own informed choices, and we would enjoy our own self-determination. This would be a society where disability rights would be recognized as civil rights and not a matter of charity. Their hopes laid the foundation for the American with Disabilities Act. And it was then their action, when they rolled up their sleeves and did the hard work, the sacrifices that they gave, which led to the drafting and the passage of the American with Disabilities Act. So my friends, understand things didn't just get better overnight for us in the disability community. People had to take action in order to make improvements, to make things better. Now, we may not have that specific defining moment etched into our consciousness in this country. For example, the Seneca Falls Convention, that was a milestone for the women's civil rights and suffrage movement. We don't have yet our own Selma, nor do we yet have our own Stonewall riots of the LGBT community. But our people have sacrificed enormously to make things better for the longest of time. I now better understand what I didn't understand back then in 1990. The Americans with Disabilities Act law, it didn't come overnight. Changes do not happen in a moment. They happen in a movement. Just like the other civil rights movements before ours, like, for example, the African Americans who sat down at the segregated lunch counters and they refused to move to the back of the bus. Similarly, people with disabilities, when we were refused access to the buses, we blocked the buses. Then we marched through the streets to protest and to demand justice. We fought against injustice, so we would be able to live independently and provided with services and support rather than be forced into institutions. They worked for years and years throughout the cities and the towns throughout the U.S. We attended protests. We licked envelopes and sent out mailings. We sent out alerts. Some of those leaders that helped draft the legislation, file the lawsuits, and lobby Congress are here with you here today. And I want to thank them. Recently, this past March, our nation commemorated the 50th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery marches. I had to pause and really, truly reflect on what that means for me to stand on the shoulders of these giants. I am here because they marched. They sacrificed for me, for you, Dr. Martin Luther King, Congressman John Lewis, and countless others who braved the violence of Bloody Sunday. We are here because of their sacrifices. President Obama said during his commemorating speech for that anniversary that because of what they did, the doors of opportunity swung open. And they didn't just swing open for black folks. They swung open for every American. Similarly, the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, it swung open a door for me and for you. Now I remember back when I was a junior, almost a senior in high school, at the time when the American Disabilities Act was signed into law. It wasn't until about a year later, during the summer of '91, when I took on a job and I truly gained an understanding and appreciation for what that law really symbolizes. I didn't learn that while I was in school. So that summer, when I took on this summer job, I worked with a nonprofit organization in New York City called Hospital Audience Incorporated. And their mission is to provide cultural access to music, dance, theater, and the visual arts for individuals with disabilities and the elderly who live in nursing homes and other institutional settings, as well as children living in health and social service settings. Now, I was a part of a cross-disability accessibility team in New York City. We were in contact with different theaters and providing surveys and finding out what they offer for accessibility in terms of the sizing of the bathrooms to access wheelchairs, the water fountains, and whether they were right height or not. Whether or not the wheelchair accessibility was actually in the audience place of the theater. And to ask them how many they had available. And we also went outside and we measured the sidewalk, the ramps, the curbs. You know, we had to count how many accessible parking spaces they had. And then we compiled all that information into a report. That really, wow, cross-disability team, it was very impactful to me that summer. And it exposed me to a lot of different other types of individuals who were not deaf like myself. I grew up deaf. I went to a deaf institution, and that was my access. And then to work with all these other wonderful people, it was very just impressive. It gave me a new sensitivity and a new empowerment related to my rights and people who other people had also disability and had rights. I later entered into Howard University, and I had this new sense of empowerment, and I had a knowledge about my rights. And it gave me hope, because here I was, this black girl from the South, from the projects, a single mom, and I happened to be deaf, and I'm going into here in college, and I'm coming from the island, and here I had this law to protect me. During that summertime, that job, it led me and introduced me to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it prepared me to become an accessibility and disability rights advocate. In Washington, D.C., I eventually discovered people like Justin and Yoshiko Dart, Marcy Roth, Michael Winter, the late Michael Winter, Tom Olin, Pat Wright, Jeff Rosen, and a fierce group of advocates who became my role models as well as my mentors. I would join them at conferences and marches and even candlelight vigils. Such as in 1999, we went as a group that was led by Justin Dart. It was a vigil held in front of the Supreme Court in protest of an attempt by several states to reverse the ADA law. I don't know if many of y'all had the honor and the pleasure to know Justin Dart. He was such a mentor. Justin, he believed in the young people. He empowered the young people, and I was one of those fortunate young people. He would often call on me to speak instead of him at a convention. And I remember, you know, he didn't want them to tread on the ADA rights that we had established. And so in Washington, D.C., he asked me to speak at that rally and to share the stage with all these prominent leaders of the generation. You had Justin Dart. You had all these wonderful people, Jeff Rosen, Mr. Garrett. And the court decision was regarding Mr. Garrett versus the University of Alabama Board of Trustees, who questioned whether the Congress exceeded its authority to enact Title II of ADA. That's 25 years. That's a generation, and we've arrived here today. A whole generation growing up in a country with accessibility to education, public accommodation, and services. They've never even known the history of non-accessibility. That is a generational passing down of a legacy. The young people here that led that movement, they had that ability to take the opportunity to access to education, to public accommodations and services, even without knowing the knowledge of what it was like in the past for those of us that came before. That was just incredible. However, guess what? When those young people, they were ready and decided to go into the job market, far too many of them realized there were doors being closed in their face. And it's up to us to help push those doors open and to keep them that way. In fact, President Obama often stresses that here in America, success should not depend on the circumstances of our birth. It should instead depend on the strength of our work ethics, each of our work ethics, yours and mine, leading toward this dream that is beyond the scope of limitedness. The president is right. There are too many within our community. They're just frustrated. The American dream seems like nothing but an empty promise. Because there are too many hurdles that have been thrown into their pathways. And those are the pathways that are being blocked as they attempt just to get financial security by getting their foot in the door and getting a job. So my friends, as we celebrate the American with Disabilities Act, let us please remember that the law is just a simple statement of principle and expectations. Those principles and expectations, they're like an investment of which the dividends, they are important, and they come with effective and meaningful implementation and enforcement. Dr. Martin Luther King understood this simple truth. Are you listening to me? That social justice without economic security is meaningless. Civil rights must come with real economic opportunity. Otherwise, there's just worthless piece of words on a paper. So, while we have much to celebrate 25 years later, a quarter of a century later, we have so many people, a large percentage of people with disabilities who are out of the workforce. And it is unacceptably high, that percentage. Despite the many successes of the American with Disabilities Act, there are numerous people with disabilities who continue to experience discrimination and barriers to full social inclusion. Let's remind ourselves as we continue to work the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. Freedom, it is never voluntarily given to us by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Now remember, going forward for the next 25 years, the different issues of the movement still continue on. We continue to fight for them. And as I said before, change does not happen in a moment. It didn't change with the signing of the American Disabilities Act. And we've come all the way here, and we have interpreters here. You know, all these various examples of what's been passed down because of the passing of the law, but yet going forward, there is still more work to do. We have to take on the shouldering and responsibility of that continued work. We need to continue to uphold and expand all that the American Disability Act has promised. We must. You ready to shoulder it? Are you ready to join me? Come on, my friends. Let's continue to march on. Let's continue to lead on. Justice, equal rights for all. Happy 25th American Disabilities Act's anniversary. Thank you very much.